Hello everyone and welcome to the Hobby Guard. Today we'll be talking about the book Ashes of the Imperium. This is part 2 of my two-part review. This will be the spoilery part. I did have to end up yesterday's video because I went to the washroom and when I came back I just kept talking about it during the second part of the video and I totally did not realize that I was not recording. But that's the type of thing that happens to an amateur content creator when he's tired after a long day of work. Regardless, we'll be addressing all the spoilers. Well, I won't say all the spoilers. I do have, pardon if I look to the side here now and then, I do have a quick summary of some of the points that I wanted to talk about, just in case I forget. But so much stuff happens in this book that it is completely impossible. It just won't happen. I'll totally forget to talk about something very important and I just know it's going to happen, but all I can do is bite the bullet. So that all being said, just right before we begin, just another huge warning. This is a spoiler talk video. I will be talking about all the stuff that happens in this book, perhaps not all of it as I said previously, but I will be talking about stuff that is in this book that I found impactful and important, and I will be paying attention to your comments. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on the book, whether you disagree with my takes on it or maybe you understood something better than I did. Whatever it is, feel free to comment down below. And so we will begin. There's a lot going on in this book, and that being so, it's so hard to pick the most impactful things that I want to talk about. But I finished reading or listening to the book yesterday at work, mind you. Don't tell my boss. But sorry, I gotta whack myself every time I say in case you're not aware. That's a thing I gotta do. Regardless, I still have it very fresh in my mind. I'm still thinking about it, thinking about all the things that it made me feel, because I just have such a strong emotional connection to these characters by now. I've been reading the Heresy for years. I went through the whole of Siege of Terra, almost all of the Horus Heresy. I still have to go back. I mean, like book 50 or something. I don't remember how many there are. I think it's like 60 something. I still have to go back and finish some of those books and short stories. But I've read most of the main ones, except most of the Space Wolves ones. Sorry, Space Wolves fans. Regardless, I have fallen so much in love with some of these characters. I've watched them struggle for so many years, and I felt such a close personal connection to some of them. And many of them, some of my favorite ones, did not make it to this book, to Ashes of the Imperium, by Chris Wright. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I forgot. Well, just in case you don't know what this book is. First of all, why are you watching a spoiler talk about this book? But if you want to watch a spoiler free, I did upload yesterday, so my last video before this one will be a spoiler free discussion and review of the book. And I explain in that video where this book takes place in the lore and in the timeline of the Horus Heresy and the broader Warhammer 40k universe. Regardless, so many of those characters did not make it to this book. But the few ones that did, only because I've been following their story arc for so long, that by now I have such a strong emotional connection to them, which is why I felt so horribly betrayed. Not betrayed, but I felt resentment towards Gilliman and the Ultramarines, because the book is brilliantly laid out in such a way that it makes you feel like Gilliman is kind of the villain of the story. Billyman, that should be his nickname. Anyways, it makes you feel like he's kind of the villain of the story, the antagonist. Obviously not the villain, right? He right away comes in and is feeding billions of people, but you just feel like he's kind of being you know what I'm saying? I'm trying so hard not to curse right now, to appease the gods of the algorithm, the chaos gods of the algorithm. Regardless, I feel like the book did that brilliantly, because the characters in that book feel just put to the side themselves. They feel like pushed to the side. Sorry, we have what is this gentleman's name? Hassan. He was one of Malkalor's chosen, and pretty much all of Malkalor's chosen. They were literally some of the most important people in the Imperium. They were working directly and exclusively under the command of Malkalor the hero, Malkalor the Sigillite, which, by the way, in this book is revealed, by at least by one of the traitors. It's in one of his testimonies that killing Malkalor was the biggest victory that the traitors have. Not defeating the Emperor, not defeating Sanguinius, and not destroying the palace of Terra, the Emperor's palace at Terra, and not the whole conquering of the galaxy, none of that. But their biggest victory, their greatest achievement, was defeating Malkalor the Sigillite. That's how important Malkalor the Sigillite is. And I know that he's not a morally completely nice guy, okay? Let's put it that way. But no character worth their salt in Warhammer 40k, or just more broadly speaking, no character in Warhammer 40k will have like a heroic moral compass and they always do the right thing. As much as GW try to shove those characters down our throat more and more often in these newer books, we all know that all of these guys, they do evil things, but they do them for the good of humanity, or so they think, right? So Malkalor certainly, and there is even a quote from him in the book, like, oh yeah, for Malkalor, sorry, the hardest thing was not wielding the power, but knowing when not to wield so much power. And such an iconic and important character for the Imperium, which, by the way, I loved him so much. Sometimes, while I was reading the Horus Heresy, sometimes he comes off as somewhat of an a-hole. But anywhere during the siege, I just felt so bad for him and so heartbroken for him. Especially, of course, just before he sits on the throne and he sees the Emperor for the last time. And I want to cry just thinking about it, man. When he tells him, like, hey, don't be sad. He tells the Emperor, don't be sad. Anyways, he sits on the Golden Throne. He passes away. And I'm getting already lost in the details here. But my point is, he was a hero, okay? And as soon as he's gone, people are like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna miss him. We appreciate his sacrifice, whatever. Let's not even talk about him. Let's not even care about his followers. And his followers have to find out about this the hard way. His followers are still trying to have some weight to get a seat in the High Council and whatever. And people are just like, bro, you're not even relevant anymore. So that is a big part of the story in this book, and that was just so painful to read, because not only those characters who are Malkalor's chosen, but I felt the same way about the White Scars, who are just completely ignored and pushed to the side. They're only there for a split second when they're literally helping Jagatai Khan just stand up and sit down, and how humiliating that is after Jagatai Khan, after he's literally pretty much sacrificed his life. Sure, he's alive now, but he kind of did die for a moment there during the Book of Warhawk. And such an amazing sacrifice. Don't even get me started on Sanguinius, Sanguinius, who gets hanged. No one's talking about Sanguinius' death, and there is a reason for it. If you read the book, as you should have, if you're watching this video, there is a reason of why they're not talking about it. But it's like, bro, we just went through the hardest freaking heartbreak of in the story of Warhammer. Everybody loved Sanguinius. Even the Custodes cried when they saw his body just being crucified by demons. Everyone except the Emperor, mind you, but that's for another reason. Literally everyone, even Space Marines, cried when they saw Sanguinius. Not even his sons, just random Space Marines. And he's not even talked about. And the Blood Angels, oh my god. By the way, these are not complaints. I'm praising the book. I'm explaining why I felt so much resentment towards the Ultramarines and Robert Gilliman, and I will go more into detail about why they're doing what they're doing, because that is, I believe, at least from my point of view, the way I understood it, that is the big, one of the big kickers of this book. Like the reason why Robert Gilliman is acting the way he's acting. It seems like maybe he's being weak, maybe he's being ambitious, maybe he's making a grab for power, sort of a non-hostile takeover, and sometimes even a hostile takeover of as much power as he can in the High Council in Terra. But we'll get into that. But right now, just as you're reading the book, that's just one of the things that I thought were brilliantly put together, because I was feeling like these characters were feeling just completely pushed to the side. I was feeling like, hey, all this emotional connection that I just had to all these characters, and you're just completely ignoring it and just talking about what you want to do with the new Imperium and how you want to rebuild it. Like, what's going on, man? Take a moment. Give Rogel Dorn and the Imperial Feast the victory feast that they deserve, no pun intended. Give the Blood Angels the cuddling, hold them in your arms. Tell them, don't worry, my cousins or whatever they would be to the Ultramarines will be here with you, whatever. No, they're just like, oh yeah, well, in that one meeting where Raldoron is there, like no one argues the fact that he's there, but they're like, well, yeah, they have to be there. But no one wants to talk about it because it's all a plan. Gilliman, and this is where we go into the impactful thing. It wasn't necessarily the most impactful thing to me in this book, but it is a huge reason of why all the events are unfolding the way they are unfolding in this book, why Gilliman is acting the way he's acting, and the Silent Sisterhood, and the Custodes, who don't say anything pretty much, but their silence is loud as heck. Turns out, Robert Gilliman is one of the few people who know, one of the few beings who are aware that the Emperor is completely whacked. Completely demolished. And to me, that was the biggest reveal in the book. The most impactful one is how the Emperor is not even human. If he ever habitated a mortal human shape, he's not even human anymore. He's just like this massive what's the word I'm looking for? Formless, amorphous entity made of psychic energy, just barely held together by this machinery. These are full of arcane and eldritch devices that are so complex that they cannot even name what they are. They just have valves and pistons and hoses and cables just going anywhere, shooting everywhere into any direction. I know you cannot see this the way my setup is, but that's pretty much how I would describe also my computer setup and my cable management. So that's what I picture, how horrible the Golden Throne is, how terrifying it is, and everyone is just doing what they can because the Golden Throne might just turn off, basically shut down at any moment. The Emperor's light might get extinguished at every moment. And the way I picture the way that it is described in that scene is like the priest of Mars, the machine priest, the tech priest, sorry, they're just like patching things up. Okay, get me one of these and let's build an entire system to patch this thing up that is losing power here. Okay, we patch that one up. Oh, that one over there is also getting extinguished. Okay, bring me parts from that planet over there and bring me this alien technology, and let's find... Everyone's just scrambling to put the Golden Throne back together. And as a consequence of that, it's not even longer a throne. It's just a room, an entire humongous machine. And we did get a glimpse of that at the very end of the previous book, which was a collection of short stories. And it was pretty much the last book, the official last book of the Horus Heresy, technically, which was the Era of Ruin. Again, a collection of short stories. I absolutely loved most of them. Not all, but most of them. Where there is this... It's just mentioned in passing pretty much in the last chapter, the last story by this Custodes, where he mentions, yeah, there is a throne and there is someone sitting on the throne, but that's not the real Golden Throne and that's not the real Emperor. And past that, that is the actual Emperor and that is the actual Golden Throne, and it is just complete. You cannot even describe what it is. And that revelation to me, we've sort of have obviously glimpses of that for years, but just that revelation to me in this book, I loved it. I will just say that. Sometimes I don't love the things that when they start to talk too much about the Emperor or whatever, but in this particular book, I really, really enjoyed how different it is and how much more sense everything else makes just further down the line. There is oh my god, I totally forgot about this. Oh, my Emperor, my holy Emperor. The whole thing where when Rogel Dorn is telling Arcamus, like he's describing his like, I also hit myself when I say like, He's describing to Archamos his last moments with the Emperor, and he tells him, yeah, I had to carry him to the throne. And as I was carrying him, he said one word to me. He said, now. Or maybe, no. And it's like, oh, by the angel's wings. What does... If he said now, whether he said now or no, that makes all of the difference in the world. If he said now, that means, yeah, this was the Emperor's plan. This following 10,000 years of horrendous torture and sacrifice every single moment of every single day that the Emperor is put through just to hold back, just to keep the Astronomicon alive, and just to hold back the way of chaos that would come over them through the webway, and just keeping basically the Imperium together. That was the Emperor's willing sacrifice. That's if he said now. To an extent, at least that would be the consequence of a willing sacrifice he made at some point, a decision he took. If he said no, if the Emperor does not want to be sitting in that golden throne, if that was not his idea, and Dorn and Gilliman and everyone else just said like, what were we supposed to do? He was gonna die. What else were we supposed to do? Well, that also changes everything, because now we know that the Emperor is not willingly there. He never wanted to be put there. He probably just wanted to die, if anything, instead of being put there. And they just force him to be there like a human battery for the end of days. And that is amazing. I love that. What's the word? I love that. It's not nuance, but that ambiguity where like you, I said like again, where you might think, oh, it could be one or the other. I love that ambiguity, because some stories like Warhammer are too big to be very defined to the last detail. There has to be some ambiguity, and whatever you choose, and we've seen this over and over again through the years, when you choose when you grab a big decision, when you grab a big point in the lore and you make a big decision about it, and you go, yeah, maybe this has been a mystery throughout the years in the lore, but now we're gonna tell you exactly what happened. Some people are happy with it, some are not. So whenever there's ambiguity, it can be done in very successful ways, like in, for example, the Isvan Dropside Massacre. I think that was amazing, and it can be done in many upsetting ways. For me personally, one of those very upsetting moments was when they changed the lore of Olanius Pius, where he was no longer just some random human and now he's an Eternal. But I digress again. Let me go back to my notes, because this book is so full of awesome moments and I really enjoy that. I do have some issue with a couple of things in the book, but I don't. There's so much positive things in this book. I might just address them in passing. Oh yeah, the warp is gone. No biggie. That's another thing. The warp is gone in this book. Give me a second here. I need a little breather. I need a little something to help me get through this. I can't show what I'm drinking because I showed it. Oh no. Okay, that was not paid advertisement. Anyways. The warp is gone. And this did get mentioned in passing also in the Era of Ruin book, where Ahriman is describing Horus didn't just die, but the entire warp, the entire connection that the warp had with this reality just went with him. I just hadn't realized, or maybe it wasn't impactful enough then. I was also at work when I was listening to that book. Sorry, John. But I hadn't realized how much of a blow that had been to the traders, especially, obviously, the poor word bearers. Some of them have been literally sharing their body with a demon for the better part of 7, if not more years. And that connection just got severed. And that's gotta be a brutal feeling, and I'm all for it. I love watching those guys suffer. Because it's I don't really feel bad for them. Like, in this book, at least, you never really feel bad for them. I did feel bad for the Iron Warriors. Especially, what's this gentleman's name? The Siege Master. I don't want to make this video any longer than it has to be. But the Siege Master... Theokon. I got it. Theokon, the Siege Master, the Iron Warrior in this book. Which, by the way, I love the intro of the book where he's just running and he's describing how the Ultramarines are just ripping and tearing through them and all the traitors. I never thought I would feel bad for the traitors. I always kind of feel bad for the Iron Warrior specifically. I don't know if it's because I kind of work so close to the whole construction industry. I do hydraulics and I do some physical labor myself. I've worked in construction before. And I know that's the type of blue-collar attitude that the Iron Warriors... That's the type of blue-collar vibe that the Iron Warriors give off. If you've ever been at a job site or have done any sort of blue-collar work with laborers and so on, you might understand these, like... It's hard to explain, but it's kind of... They're miserable, but at the same time, they're the only ones who are doing the thing, and they don't get any praise for it. And the higher ups get all the praise, and the architect and whatever. And meanwhile, you're there just shoveling, just grinding through the mud, literally. And you don't get any praise for it. So you're bitter about it, but at the same time, the job has to get done anyways. You really, literally don't have time to whine. Or maybe you'll whine while you do it, but it has to get done regardless. So yeah, those are all things that I like about the Iron Warriors. So out of all the traitors, I think I only feel bad for them, but they're still a-holes sometimes. So, you know, I love the Iron Warriors in this book, and they don't have many fight scenes. Pretty much all that they're doing is literally run, and I love if that's pretty much the word that Theokon says the most. Run, dude. We screwed up. They got us. Run. We'll figure out what to do later, and just how much he wants to get out of there, how much he's done with all the other Primarchs. He's just done with Perturabo, he's done with Lorgar, he's done with Horus. Another thing that really took me aback was how much, well, it makes sense when you think about it, but how much people hate the Sons of Horus now in this book. Immediately after Horus dies and everyone's just getting something up their backsides. Everyone looks at the Sons of Horus and everyone's like, yo, your dad told us that he could beat that guy. Your dad said he could beat the Emperor, and all of our dads and all of us got together because we believed in your dad and we followed you guys, and now your dad got his ass kicked, so now it's your fault. And I guess I never thought about that in that way, because we look at the Black Legion, obviously Abaddon the Despoiler, who was the first captain of Horus, Lupercal, he puts together the Black Legion eventually. And in the 41st millennium, the Black Legion are like the big bad guys. It's just the most organized that Chaos has become. The most organized force that Chaos has is the Black Legion. Admittedly, I believe it could have been treated better in the modern, quote-unquote, timeline. But regardless, I just never thought that immediately, in the immediate aftermath of the Horus Heresy, of the death of Horus, they would be so hated. And I am all for it. I love it because they're so prideful. And I forgot the name. I shouldn't, because he was also one of my favorite characters. Vardesh Kaya, the chief apothecary of the Sons of Horus. He's there defending Luna. And I'll go into the whole thing of Luna eventually, because that's a whole other plot point. Basically, most of the action that happens in this book, I want to say 80% of the action that happens in this book, takes place in Luna, in the battle for Luna, the reconquest of Luna, the second conquest of Luna. Anyways, there's just so much in this book. And that's the thing, so much happens so fast, and just tidbits of lore that you probably don't realize on the first read through how important they are. When I was reading the audiobook, I just had to clip and just go back and listen. That's why it took so long to read the whole book and put out this review, because I just kept going back like, did I hear that right? Are there black ships on Luna? But we'll get to that. I love this character. I love how Vardesh Kreia is he's also done with it. But he still has this flame in his heart that really takes me back to the Horus Rising series of books, where the Sons of Horus just like a good scrap. And they love shouting for the War Master, for Lupercal, and they love punching the air and shouting, Lupercal, Lupercal, Lupercal. And he just took me back to that vibe, and I kind of felt bad for him. Not out of pity, it just feels sad because it took me back to a moment in the early Heresy, the early 2000s, if you recall, where the Sons of Horus were this prideful but joyful band of brothers who just really loved a good scrap, and they just really, really loved their father, their Primarch, Horus Lupercal. So, in the end, even after such a brilliant strategy and defense that they implement, they make the loyalists pay for every mile that they take in Luna. Hold on, let me restart here my little my little queue of videos that I wanted playing in the background, just so that there's something in the background, because I have crippling ADHD, and I know some of you might as well. So I think I got you, my ADHD buddies. Yeah, Kraya. He makes the loyalists, the Ultramarines specifically, pay in blood for every meter of ground that they take. And yet Guilliman is just being so ruthless about it, and we don't find out until later why he's being so ruthless about it, even though I've sort of already mentioned it. But that's another thing that was impactful, seeing how cold-blooded Guilliman can be with his own Ultramarines. Whereas he, even the, what's the apothecary's name? Not the apothecary, sorry, the Psyker's name. What was his name? Titus, obviously. Titus Prado. He mentions, I think, at some point, where like, hey, we're taking on too much losses. This might cripple our legion if we just keep going. And Guilliman's like, I don't care. If he dies, he dies. Just keep going. We have to take Luna. And brilliantly, we never see Guilliman say all these things. And that's exactly how I love the Primarchs to be treated. I don't know if you watched my Lionel Johnson in Dawn of War video and my whole thing about is there a Primarch fatigue? Well, there's no such thing as Primarch fatigue in this book. I love finding out the intentions of the Primarchs and how they're thinking because of the actions that they take, because of the little snippets of conversations that we hear from them. That's how I like to consume my Primarch lore, okay? And yeah, Guilliman is just completely single-minded. We have to take Luna. We have to take it right away. I don't care how you do it. And I thought, okay, he just wants... It's portrayed in the book at first as he just wants this victory for himself. Like, he just wants this celebration. He thinks the Imperium, the people of Terra specifically, they need a W. They gotta take a win. So we're gonna use the Reconquest of Luna as this big, iconic, Ulanor adjacent victory, even though it pales in comparison to the victory at Ulanor, obviously. But Guilliman goes into that, and we think, at least that's what I was thinking for most of the book, oh yeah, this guy, he just wants to fluff his own feathers. Basically, I don't know if that's an actual saying, but regardless. But no, turns out there was a reason why Guilliman absolutely needed to take Luna. There was a reason why Guilliman was his doing, which was basically the main plot point of the book. The Imperium itself reforming and deciding, do we go on a crusade after the traitors or do we rebuild? And that's the main political split that happens in the book, whereas Guilliman and the High Lords of Terra want to fortify, want to retake Luna, want to retake Mars, and the remaining Primarchs mainly just want to go on a crusade, just want to make them bleed. Even my poor boy Jagatai can, because, well, Jagatai can do whatever he wants because he can. Ha. But that's the main political split that happens in this book, and then pretty much eventually, almost at the end, I think you understand why. Because the Golden Throne is shutting off, the Emperor is about to die if he's still alive, because he's not really living as we understand as a human to be alive. He's just, like I said, this amorphous warp psychic energy thing barely held together as a human battery, pretty much. So that is brutal. And Guilliman, I didn't realize how cold-hearted he was, how calculating, how Machiavellian he was, in a sense, because, sorry about that, he's aware that the Golden Throne needs to be fed psychers, which obviously in the 41st millennium we all know that is what is happening. They're feeding thousands and thousands of psychers every day to the Golden Throne. And in this other series by also Chris Wright, called I forget, but this series about the Inquisitors, the first book in that series, if I recall correctly, it's been a while, talks about that, how the Golden Throne is dying, and they have probably 100 years or so of the Golden Throne still running, but that's 10,000 years in the future. Let's stay here in the 30th millennium, the 31st millennium. Gilliman wants to capture the secret black ships that are on Luna, and he wants to send them. At least that's what I understood. He's using the Silent Sisterhood to send them across the galaxy, capturing psychers right now. At first, I was a bit confused when they were describing the black ships. I was like, "Are those really black ships? What is going on?" The way they were described reminded me of Drukhari ships for some reason, but I love the way they were described, and I loved that Titus didn't know what he was looking at, and I love that Gilliman sent specifically the Blood Angels there because probably in his super cold and calculating mind, well, they don't have to report to anyone, A, and B, they're already being super secretive after what happened. Probably Gilliman knows what happened when Sanguinius died, that they fell to the Black Rage. And just as a parting commentary, just before I end this video, I want to dive into the Blood Angels. I wish I had Blood Angels miniature nearby, one of my Blood Angels nearby that I can grab real quick, just to show off that I collect Blood Angels. But yeah, well, maybe some other time I'll show you some of my Blood Angels, because I am collecting a Blood Angel army, although I haven't painted them in years at this point. Life goes on so fast and painting takes so long, guys. By the way, I am investing in an actual camera, because right now I only have my webcam, because eventually I do want to make content of me painting my miniatures, even though obviously I'm not very good at it, but I have a good level, I think, so much so that I can show you guys my process and so on. Regardless, the poor Blood Angels, I was so depressed reading about them, because the thing is, everyone else in this book that doesn't know what went on, doesn't know about the Black Rage, doesn't know about the Red Thirst, doesn't understand why they're being so cowardly. And some Space Marine even tells Titus at some point, they seem scared. And Titus goes, "That's a slur, dude." We don't get to say that about Space Marines. Not even we get to say that about other Space Marines. That's a slur, and it literally says, "That's a slur" for a Space Marine. And I absolutely love that. That's the worst thing you can call a Space Marine, a coward. I absolutely love that part. But he thinks, well, maybe it's just because Sanguinius died, and he doesn't quite get it. He's just taken aback. They didn't used to fight like that. They were the gods of the battlefield. They were a beautiful combination of close combat brutality and perfection and beauty. And what is going on with them now, right? But we know. They probably when Sanguinius died, they just went into a rampage. And I wish that the previous books had gone more into what happened. And I hope that there's an upcoming Scouring book that focuses more on Raldaron and Ascalon, and please give me some more of Dominion Zephon. I love that character. Unfortunately, I think the author that wrote that character is no longer actively writing books. But anyways, that's Aram Densky Bowden, by the way. I was blanking on his name for a bit, but yeah, I don't love everything that he writes, which goes for all authors, really. But I really like what he did with the Blood Angels. To me, he has written the best books, the best characters for the Blood Angels in the best way, rather. Even more so than Chris Wright himself. I didn't love his book about the Blood Angels, to be honest, about Sanguinius. I thought it could have given more. There were some very fun moments there, for sure, but I digress. Yeah, we have to find out more about exactly what happened when Sanguinius died to the Blood Angels. And speaking of which, I wish we had gotten more and that's the thing of this book. It gives you so much, but it also leaves you wanting for so much more. I want to know more about the Lion and Corson and what they're talking about with each other. What's going on with Caliban? We know Caliban is silent. We know they want to go back. We know what's going on in Caliban to an extent, but they don't know, and that is very interesting. I want to know more about the Khan and his White Scars. There's this, what was his name? This awesome White Scar character that I follow through all of the Heresy, also written by the guy that wrote this book. Sorry, I'm blanking on his name again, but I said it before. What was that White Scar's name? Well, I guess his name isn't very important right now, but you know the one from all the previous books in the Horus Heresy, the one that was completely, the one that saves the baby, and then he eventually gives the baby to Katsuhiro. You know the one. I can't find his name. Anyways, I'll remember his name as soon as this video is over, which is a tragedy. But I want to know more about him. I want to know more about the Blood Angels. I'm totally hooked on the Scouring now. I thought maybe it was only a money grab from GW about, let's keep giving these nerds, these sweaty, shameless nerds, more expensive books to buy and read, and we'll just keep milking what we have. And that's probably what GW is doing, but Black Library themselves are taking this seriously. If this first book in the series is anything to go by, and I'm all for it. I did want to address the female custodians thing at some point, but realistically that's only in like a few pages of the book, so it's probably not worth addressing in this video. But I do have thoughts on it, and I do have thoughts I want to share on why I think it shouldn't have been added, but we'll get into that later. Anyways, right now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more of this content, obviously this channel is just starting, so I'm just still figuring everything out. I want to do so much more video games. I want to start streaming at some point, probably early next year. And like I said previously, I want to do more Warhammer related content, more tabletop related content. There's a whole lot I want to get into eventually. But yeah, that will be all for this video. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that I didn't talk about, or I didn't have time to talk about, or I forgot to talk about. So please let me know in the comments down below whether I misunderstood something, or you agree or disagree with something what I said. What do you think about this book? Just anything. Like and subscribe the video if you want to see more like this. And thank you. See you on the next one.